Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Just before I do start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm calling in from. I'm here on Boonwurrung, on the land of the Wurundjeri people. I want to pay respect to elders past, present, and for the future elders coming through. They're going to be our leaders in the future. And to all Aboriginal people that have come in listening to us today. Today I've got a really great friend popping in to talk to us. Brodie, how are you?
Great, thanks, AJ. How are you?
Good, good. I'm glad that we could get you on. But just to start off with, who are you? Where you from?
My name is Brodie Murray. I grew up in near Castlemaine, on Dja Dja Country in regional Victoria, and now living on Boonwurrung Country in Melbourne.
Cool, cool. How would you describe yourself? What do you do?
I'm a I work as a performer and a playwright within the theatre industry in Melbourne, and also starting to work more in community now through Victorian NAIDOC now. So doing more trying to do more community work in the community now.
Cool. So how did you get into the arts? Did you study something to get in, or how did you actually get in?
Yeah, I always growing up had a interest in the world of the performing arts. Both my parents musicians and dad a storyteller. It was about around 2019 when I did an education program at Melbourne Theatre Company called it was called the First People's Young Artist Program back then. The program designed to help pathway young Indigenous people into acting and playwriting in the performing arts. And I did that program in 2019. And from doing that program, a lot of doors opened for me in the arts.
Yeah. So I know that you do writing and I know that you do acting as well. Do you have a preference for either?
Um, more have a background as a writer. However, I do occasionally perform as well. Yes.
Yeah. Any favorite? Or you like both equally or?
I probably at this part of my journey prefer writing and storytelling, but I think there's also a lot of joy that comes out of performing as well.
Yeah. So you've just recently had a performance, or you've written the play The Whisper, which was played down at in the city during a couple of January, or was it March, April?
February, yeah.
Um, yeah, February. Yes, marvelous. I enjoyed it very much.
Thanks
Tell
so
us a
much.
little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about how you got into your mindset to write about your family story.
Yeah, it was a very special project, doing The Whisper, which played at yeah, 45 downstairs in the city. And for me, and that's it's very special for me being able to be a part of the performance of the story with senior actors such as Greg Fryer and Melody Reynolds Diarra, and working with them, and also Balaniba, who's very talented, and working with all of them who are all very established performers and storytellers was very special for me as a young person, looking up to them and working with them in the production.
Yeah. So did you have to get family involved in understanding the story?
Yeah, I had particularly when I was first creating and drafting the play in 2022, I had a lot of cultural guidance, uh, both dramaturgically and also guidance from dad, and him supporting me through that process. And particularly because my nan's a very shy person, who lives in regional New South Wales, and dad's a more outspoken person, and dad was able to guide me through a lot of the process.
Yeah. But people that haven't seen it and know nothing about it, how would you describe it in just a few sentences?
I would say it's a drama piece of theatre, a contemporary Indigenous piece of theatre, which is looking at family family culture, and also journey towards something, but in particular telling a story which may not have been told so much before, and particularly of the experiences of First Nations people, particularly in Victoria and the southeast.
Yeah. And casting for it, did you have people in mind when you were writing it, or did the casting come afterwards when you put it out to people to like audition for it?
Yeah, it's a good question. We did a first season at Melbourne Fringe in 2022, and we had Greg Fryer playing the grandfather. We had Jaden Williams playing one of the roles, Aunty Carolyn Martin's son, who's connected into Wamba Wamba as well. And we had a young fella called Benjamin Fay and Aunty Nellie Flagg playing the roles. So that was for the first season at Fringe a few years ago. Going into this season, Uncle Greg Fryer came back reprising his role as Pop. But we had three new actors, including myself, stepping into roles, which had different people in the last season.
Yeah, because I want to say Melody's performance was absolutely breathtaking right through the whole thing, including the emotional parts that I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the emotional cry that she took it out into space kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you, with you taking on one of the roles, do you feel a bit weird being in your own play?
It was definitely because I wasn't involved I wasn't performing in the first season. Taking on one of the performing roles for the second season was definitely a big challenge for me. Obviously being very close to the material, I had to find a way not to I guess look after myself and look after the people around me who I was collaborating with, the fellow cast, especially stepping into a story which is so personal, coming from Nan and stuff. But I found so much joy in taking on that story, taking on the character of young Riley, the world he was living in, and working with Brodie'a as my older brother was, very special.
Yeah. If someone wanted to write a play and they came to you because you could do it, where would I start? How would I actually put a play together about my family?
Yeah, every self, I have, I guess I do a lot of research before creating a script or writing the script. So I try and, particularly if it's a story about family, this one, The Whisper, I was consulting a lot with Dad, asking him questions about what was right, what was wrong. I had an interview with Nan in early 2022 before writing the first draft in Balranald, where she took me through the story and her recollection of the events which happened. So that really formed a strong basis for me and a strong foundation for me to write the story based off her interview. So I guess that for me personally, doing the research first can be very important, but for some people they might want to jump straight in and write. I don't think there's maybe a right approach, but yeah, everyone I guess might do it differently.
Yeah. Which brings me to a question I'm going to ask you about truth telling, because it wasn't just a story that you were telling, it was the truth telling component about this is exactly what happened. There was no fairy floss, tinsel, or icing sugar put onto the story at all. It was coming from a really truth telling component.
Yeah, definitely.
What does truth telling mean to you?
Yeah, I it's definitely been something that's very much informed my practice the last few years. I think in the context particularly of Koori stories, I feel like as a playwright. Koori stories are often underrepresented, especially in the theatres in our state. I'd love to see more Koori stories, Victorian stories in the big theatres like Melbourne Theatre Company, for example. I'd love to see more Koori stories in these spaces. For example, when I first did Yurrum Boy Festival in 2021, writing a play called Soul of Possum, which was based on the first paddle steamers which went up the Murray River. Doing that story under the guidance of Aunty Carolyn Martin when she was Yurrum Boy's creative director then. That was very important for me, having her mentorship and her really helping me out and commissioning that play. But I think that, yeah, truth telling is such an important part, particularly of our Koori history as well. I think.
Yeah. Growing up, did you have any role models that you looked up to?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, both sides of, both grandparents, particularly, my dad, my grandfather, Uncle Bez Murray, who was a bushman who worked on a station called Yanga, which is out near Balranald, for about, I think he was the overseer there on the station for around 50 years. So he was definitely someone who I admired a lot and looked up to, a very cultural man, who, definitely did a lot for our Koori mob, working on the Mildura Koori court and, my dad as well, and my nan, Lorraine. So I've definitely had good people to look up to.
Yeah. Question I've got for you is, you hear the buzzword reconciliation going around a lot. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Yeah, I think finding connection between stories, both black stories and white stories, and trying to find connection between cultures, trying to particularly hearing our stories, also coming together and recognizing the rich history that we have of the first peoples of Australia. So I guess a sense of all communities coming together to listen to our stories, listen to our narratives, listen to what we've got to say, I think.
Bit of a question, but have you ever experienced racism yourself?
My time at boarding school, and particularly within the boarding house culture, definitely some memories I think of some unpleasantness, I think, and some discomfort within living within that kind of environment. Particularly, I'm sure some of the other First Nation students may have felt at that time, operating in those kind of hierarchies. I think of that. I think of some of those experiences particularly, and yeah, there's some things I can think of.
Yeah, no. Is there any stereotypes around Aboriginal culture that you would like to kind of break?
Yeah, I on that, um, yeah, I, I think I'd recall on one of my first days at boarding school, um, often getting questions around um how what percent are Aboriginal are you? Those kind of questions from students that I remember getting quite frequently during my time at the school, and questions that definitely were from a place of just a place of ignorance, I guess, from some of the people who would ask those sort of questions. Particularly around being on a scholarship as well. Oh, so you got a free scholarship, but what's attached to that as well? What's the I guess, the meaning behind some of those questions. So I guess kind of breaking some of trying to educate the wider public, I guess, about some of these things.
Yeah. Question: at school, how much Indigenous studies did you actually cover at school?
I remember particularly in year 12, we were studying a text called Black Diggers. Black Diggers by Tom Wright, I think the name of the playwright was, a non-Indigenous playwright. And I remember us studying this text for about 6 months about this play, but the play wasn't, it was written by a non-Indigenous writer, but I was thinking when we were studying this play, which took up a big part of year 12, what kind of cultural consultation did the playwright have with the community? And definitely some sort of red flags may have popped up to do with did he have the support of what was he consulting with community, going through cultural protocol, etc., as a non-Indigenous playwright. But I particularly remember that text, doing that in year 12.
Yeah. Do you think Indigenous perspectives are being taught better at school these days, or do you think it's pretty much the same?
I'd like to think there's been a change. I finished school in 2019, and there was definitely some work, in my opinion, that needed to be done in that space, particularly in the private school sector. And I hope that there's been a change for the good. I hope that I hope that conditions are improving in that space, particularly in the school curriculums around First Nations knowledges and practices being taught to every student. I hope that that's happening more, and from what I hear, I think things are getting better. I hope.
Yeah. If I could give you $1 million zillion and a magic wand, what would you like to try to fix first in Indigenous affairs in Australia?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, it was definitely a very tough time at the end of last year with the voice to Parliament and how that ended up panning out. The no vote that was definitely a very hard time for a lot of us mob. I know, especially for me, the result was of the referendum and everything that happened with the no definitely took its toll. So I hope that we can we we can continue in our Indigenous community, and we can continue to within those spaces to continue to educate the wider public.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. Other words that get thrown around recently are things like cultural safety. What makes you feel culturally safe when you go to an organisation either as a patient or as a student? What makes you feel culturally safe?
Yeah, I think I think I may have said earlier, I've started to work a lot with Victorian NAIDOC, and I felt it's been such a joyful experience for me, reconnecting with the grassroots Victorian Aboriginal organisations, and looking at people like Uncle Stuart Murray, who worked at the league and stuff, and looking at the legacy that these elders have left for us. And now I'm working sort of within Vic NAIDOC and seeing just the joy of that organisation and the opportunities they're providing for young ones. That's an organisation which I think is doing very good work in the community, and I'm very lucky to be now working with them. So I think, being in a culturally safe space, I think it's the people who've the giants who've paved the way in these spaces, particularly those who've come before. And I spoke about Uncle Stuart. been one of those leaders in those spaces, and someone who my dad often talks about is Uncle Stuart. So definitely a lot of these people who've come before.
Yeah. Elders is an interesting topic because you mentioned elders as well, and often people go, well, what makes someone an elder? And the question I've got to you, what does make someone an elder to you?
Yeah, I think someone who's um spent time within the community, someone who's gained the trust of the community, gained the trust of youth, and also gained respect with the youth, and who's someone who's really given a good example to young ones, and someone who's really providing opportunities within that space, someone the young ones and the youth look up to. For me, that's what's the makings of someone who's an elder in the community.
Yeah. You got any plans for the next 12 months? Any new productions coming out? Any writings that we should know about?
I have potentially a couple of something exciting coming up for next year, but still in the early stages of that. But just study at the moment. But hopefully next year maybe a remount of a certain play, but maybe more news to come on that in the next few months. Fingers crossed that happens. But for now, just taking breaks when I can and study for now.
Yeah, cool. So what are you studying at the moment?
I'm studying a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theatre at the Victorian College of the Arts.
Oh, beautiful. That's down in St Kilda, isn't it?
That's
St Kilda
right.
Road? Yeah.
Yep.
So what year you doing? What year you're in now?
I'm in second year of my studies.
So in your course, what subjects are you studying to make up your degree?
We're studying primarily around the forms of theatre and expression, particularly through script writing, playwriting, movement, and acting methods.
Awesome. Anything you're attracted to most in the course?
I would say particularly the script writing, playwriting, elements of the course.
Yeah. Would you like to do more acting in the future, or do you want to stay with script writing?
I think if the opportunity was there I think if the opportunity was there in the future, I would definitely take on more acting roles. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens, but for now, more of a focus on the writing, but you never know, might do some more performance in the future.
So tell us something that you don't normally tell people about Brodie.
I think something some people may not know is that growing up I had a dream to be a professional tennis player. Unfortunately that didn't end up eventuating, but it's definitely something I've found a lot of joy in, playing and continuing to play tennis locally. And then my brother Lewis, who you know is um currently at Scotch College, and he's doing very very well with his tennis through the Aunty Yvonne Goolagong Foundation, and he's won the Indigenous Championships up in Darwin twice now, so hopefully for a third this year, but we'll see. So I guess I've hopefully passed that skill of tennis down to him, and he's doing well with it. So
yeah. My final question is what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this afternoon?
I guess I'd love to see in the space of the performing arts definitely more black fellas and more mob getting involved with the arts and with theatre. We need more representation on our stages. We need more mob on our stages. We definitely need more First Nation stories in the big companies, and I hope to, I definitely, it's something I hope to see soon, and it's definitely happening now through a lot of leaders, First Nations leaders in our industry, but I hope to see more representation over the coming few years.
Oh, beautiful, man. I know I'm watching the time, and I know it's time we have to go, but I want to say thank you, Brodie, for joining me today. I also want to say thank you for just for your writing, and I was so moved watching Whispers that as I was recommending it all over my Facebook for everyone to go and see. Hopefully, you get is it like a third time around with it?
Yeah, hopefully,
Because
yes.
I'll be making sure I'm at another performance of it and making sure everyone can actually get to see it, because it is your family story, but it's also a real poignant story for Aboriginal people, and it's so moving, so heartfelt. You can laugh in it, you can cry in it, you can sometimes just want to yell at the characters to do something or not to do something. So you actually had me in all those places, which is really good, because it's very hard for someone because it's one act, 75 minutes. It's pretty intense and pretty full on, but you did a beautiful job of it as a writer and acting in it as well. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. And guys, just say thanks to Brodie, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast. So thanks heaps. Bye.
Thanks so much, AJ. Thank you.